Welcome to Inside Auto Podcast, where we feature everyone and anyone you'd want to talk to in and out of the automotive industry.
Here we are. Wow. Back on the Inside Auto Podcast. My co-host Ilana is not with us today, but our guest is amazing. So we're super excited. This is Aaron Horowitz here, host of Inside Auto Podcast, where we interview top dealers, GMs, marketers, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in and out of the automotive industry. Before we introduce today's guest, this episode is sponsored indeed by AutoLeadStar.com. The AutoLeadStar platform is built on a technology so powerful it allows you to market, sell, and service cars as you would in the real world at scale and online, making one-to-one matches between shoppers and inventory. AutoLeadStar is the only platform that is powered by scale, speed, and specificity to change the way dealers do marketing. Pete Petersen, welcome. How are you?
How's it going? I love the pitch on there too. I love the intro side of it. We're doing awesome today. I'm really happy to be here. We've talked a lot in the industry, excited. I've listened to the show many times. I think you guys are doing a bang up job. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Yeah. So Pete, for those who don't know, from our listeners, I'm sure most do know, but Pete is the CEO and managing partner of Dealers United, one of I think the most interesting and innovative advertising, social media marketing, and many other parts of the funnel platform in the auto industry. Prior to that, Pete has been all over the business world, including involved with some very significant transactions, Fortune 500 companies. So we have a lot of things that we can talk about. He lives in beautiful Sarasota with his amazing family, 3 kids, lovely wife, Kristen. This is it, the life, Pete. I see the Nolan Ryan jersey behind you, right? That's
absolutely lights out, baby. Strikeout king.
Very nice. Well, listen, we, as you know, like to learn a lot on this podcast about the person and talk a little bit about automotive. I will tell you, and I'm curious how you feel about this, but I think Dealers United is a very bold name for a company, meaning it makes me think of like a picket line, of a revolution, of some level of just movement and statement. What's the origin of that? What's the concept? What's that name imbued with, the name of your company?
Yeah. So originally it was my 2 business partners are Jesse Biter, who founded HomeNet and sold that to AutoTrader in 2010, and Matt Buchanan, a top 100 Ford dealer located here at Sarasota Ford. And they were together and they saw the industry in 2010 kind of going through some turmoil after, the 2007 great recession that we had. And they realized like dealers didn't have the same buying power as the big mega groups. And so they really set out to build the largest dealer group that came together for buying power. And so the company started out negotiating products and services, somewhat due to non-competes with the trade from AutoTrader. But really the big side was, Matt wanted to go out as his dad sold. He had about 26 dealerships at the time. He went down to 2 or 3 as his dad sold them off and went into Congress. And he realized he didn't have the same buying power he once did. And everybody was like, Matt, we love you, but your CRM price just tripled, right? And he's like, why? And he's like, well, you don't have 25 stores anymore, so you got to pay more, right? And so that single point started having a big cost disadvantage on operational costs. So his whole goal was to try to make operational costs the same for all dealers, leveling the playing field and giving everybody the ability to compete. And we feel like right now with digital, there's this digital revolution. And that's what we're trying to help with right now is really go out there, find the right mediums for the customer to work with and make sure that they're not wasting money out there so that they can level the playing field and go out there and reach their local buyers. So really exciting.
And as you point out, like we live in this like changing world and changing landscape. And right now things are changing a lot. I think the skills to handle that are different maybe than what they were 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. So I'm curious about yourself. And it's great to learn a little bit about you on a personal level in this conversation. But you were actually an entrepreneur at a very young age. Is that correct?
Yeah, I sold my first business at 23. So 21, I started the company.
So tell me, go back before that, because we'll get to 21, your age 21 in a minute. But did you have that characteristic in your even like younger life? Like, how did that show up in high school, in college, or did it at all?
Yeah, no, it definitely did.
Or
I
you
mean, I
just
was
like
always
partying like crazy in college, not doing anything.
that, well, yeah, that too. But my dad was a professional fireman. My mom kind of bounced between jobs. So they were very blue collar, grew up, never really went on family trips. And for me, it was like a big part. My aunt worked for United Healthcare, and I saw the wealth that she gained from going down this corporate path. And she had a beach house and she had this, and she would take me places. And that was kind of my exposure to like what a life was like. Like I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I was always driven by that side. So I always had a job, from the time I was probably 10 or 11, I think I started my first, landscaping. I had a paper route. I mean, for those that are old enough to realize that, I had a paper route. I literally was cutting lawn. My parents joke with me, I had a lawn mowing and babysitting card, right? I would do whatever. It didn't matter, right? You want me to pick up sticks or you want me to watch your kid? If there was money involved, I was down for it.
How was your paper toss?
Probably not good. I was real good at collecting money though, on, going around the neighborhood and making sure we got paid. So the rest of it, the product side of it at that time, I was still learning how to do product delivery. So it teaches you a lot, but yeah, I was always involved. I worked on farms. I worked in, a big, masonry shop where I literally was loading cars up. So anything I could put my hands on and do, but then I realized like physical labor was not something I wanted to do for my whole life. So I tried to really pivot and learn business. And that's where I started finding mentors, and they really helped me at like 14, 15 start, becoming involved in like the business side of things.
Got it. And so what did you do? What was that first company?
So
what space was it in?
For what, that I sold or that I worked for earlier?
That one from age 21 to 23.
Yeah. So I moved to Sarasota, Florida. My parents had retired down here, and I realized there was a big gap for technology companies. So at that point, everything was kind of going to these little central office systems. Servers were going in, racks were going in. So I went to like lawyers and doctors. HIPAA was a big thing for doctors' offices. So I was just getting them compliant, putting in printers and centralized systems, and taking care of their workstations. So I was able to go around and kind of have a small business serving small businesses. And then one of my customers actually wound up acquiring me because they wanted to grow, and they were doing about $3.5 million, and they had the desire to be $100 million business. And we were able to achieve that, in under 10 years, which was great. So it was a great transition strategy.
Got it. And what was the biggest lesson learned from that first business from your perspective?
Oh man, it's tough, going at it alone, at 21, you don't know anything, which is your best strength and your biggest weakness. Right. But, mentors, trying to find those, the biggest advice is just, you have to ask for help. You have to ask your customers for help. We were bootstrapped, and I've always believed in kind of a bootstrap business. I know you and I have taken kind of different approaches at life in some ways. But for me, it was realizing like, keep your expenses super thin, do a lot of stuff on your own. And I think it was that the hardest part was like when to get your first employee, what that first employee was going to be, knowing that all that cash wasn't coming into you to pay your expenses, that you have to like shell it out and kind of being broke. But, being 21, being able to live at home with mom and dad really helps a lot in a bootstrap model. So, now that I have kids and I'm older and a lot more responsibilities, it's not easy to do that same model,
Got it. And then after that, you moved on at some point to, as part of being an S1, you were working with some of the kind of, most well-known brands out there. What was what changed there? Like, what did you have to learn in order to be successful at that level versus say where you were when you were more in an entrepreneurial mode?
Yeah, I mean, there was all about scale. So I was like number 10 employee, and we took it to 200 plus employees. And so a lot of it was just understanding leadership and, really at that point, the one thing that relieved me is I didn't have to worry about where the cash was coming from. Our founders were very well in tune with the banks. So we were learning a lot. They were investing a ton in us, but it was really about how to build a strong culture, how to lead people, how to build the teams right. I think that was the biggest reason that we were successful is we built an amazing culture. We organized our teams very well. We invested a ton into internal technology that allowed us to scale our business. And so we focused a ton on our culture, a ton on our systems, our business rules. I think business rule planning and really having a system to automate those and making sure when we were focused on things, we were always focusing on the customer experience and how the customer needed to be treated. And that allowed us to literally either acquire our competition or put them out of business in many cases. And it wound up even allowing us to acquire an entire division of Hewlett-Packard on a brand licensing agreement because we were running our business more efficiently than a Fortune 500 company was.
Got it. Yeah, it's so interesting with how customer service has really become this watchword. And I mean, in some ways I'd attribute that to Amazon, right? That kind of, Jeff Bezos sort of grabbed that. But obviously Amazon wasn't the first company to focus obsessively on customer service. There's case studies about Nordstrom's and other companies. And I just think that it always comes back to that, doesn't it? In everything that, with a customer experience, the customer being able to communicate with the customer and give them what they need is just the most important thing.
It's 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, they're the ones who fund your business, right? And if you can't get a customer to do it, you might have inflections of a bank or VC funding or something to help you along the way. But at the end of the day, your customer, if you're doing things in eyes of the customer the right way, right? The market will always tell you if you're doing good or bad. It will support you or not. And, if you're not adapting to your customers, and you take COVID, for instance, I mean, look at how business has been interrupted and shifted and how people have either went out of business, or you watch the other ones of booming through this time. Right. Just listened and started adapting their business to where the customer wants to transact or where they want to, receive the data. So really interesting.
Yeah. I think a lot about how there just seem to be in companies very rigid framework for interacting with customers, and there's good reason for that, right? A ticket has to come in. In the end, once you have more than one customer, or 10 or 20 or 30 or whatever it is, you do need to be able to track in a very organized way. But I find that frustrating as a customer. Meaning, if I'm a customer, I want to be the only customer, and I would love to just be able to interact with the company in the most natural way, not have to and I'm saying this is a company that has all the things that I'm talking about, the ticketing systems and all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I often think about that. Like, what could we do and what could we innovate in this company or in any company, but to really just get the customer interactions to be entirely natural, fast. Phone is obviously great, and just letting customers call you, dealers in particular, I think they'd love to pick up the phone. Dealers also like to text, right? And there are dealers that text me, right? And dealers some dealers like to leave you a voice note, right? Other dealers like to, it just should flow in the most natural way for every individual customer. And there aren't really systems that do that and give you the back office to manage it well. Yeah. And I think about that a lot when it comes to I don't know what you guys use for all your customer management stuff, but I think we use something called Zendesk, which is a very common platform. I just wish there was more there around the customer facing side where it's just easier to flow.
Yeah. And I think it's always tough because technology is constantly iterating, and now you've got in platform, like Messenger that starts, having conversations, and even,
an intercom or something like that. Right.
Yeah. So having that, and then you've got online chat. So yeah, there definitely is. I think a lot of people trying to solve for that right now. There's a lot of technology. At the end of the day, I think it comes down to, one of our customers who's a third generation Ford dealer said it really great. He's 28 years old, and he goes, "Hey, Pete, my grandfather sold cars, my dad sold cars, I sell cars. And in the service-based business, the questions haven't changed at all, right? They still want to know, can I afford this? What's the right car for my family? But where people are having the questions and where people are asking the questions are changing, right? And you saw it back, in the late 2000s, it started in online forums, right? So if you were present there, you can win that game and chat with people. Now they're happening, in conversations. Obviously, if you're in the friend to friend side of it, if you could be listening all the time and a friend says, "Hey, where's the best place to buy a car?" And you could be right there always saying, "Oh, right here at my dealership, you've won it." But they're happening all over. It's just when and how are you interjecting yourself into those conversations? And when the customer wants to communicate with you, are you offering them the choice on how they want to communicate for that experience? And I think I was just talking to one of my friends who just sold his business to one of the largest private equity companies around plumbing and air conditioning and stuff like that. And he was having the same struggle. He's like, "Man, we're getting, I used to call and confirm all of our appointments via phone. And then now we're starting to text everybody on it. And I feel like we're losing that customer experience." I said, "But look, I'm one of your customers actually. And I prefer to get a text message when someone's on the route, because if not, you're calling me while I'm in the middle of hosting a podcast with my buddy in the middle of it, and then I've got to answer the phone to make sure that you're going to show up. If I just know you're coming, great. I know you're coming, everything's good to go. That's the right time to use text messaging. So I think it's about us reevaluating our process and saying, okay, what entry points, how do we start these conversations? Where can we pick them up? And not forcing that process where, if it starts on text or phone or here, it always has to go back to a phone call. I'm usually a big fan of, if it started on text message, keep that message going until you say, hey, you know what? It makes sense. Should we jump on a call real quick and just talk about it and then get them over? So it's about those handoff protocols. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the way and some of the platforms, again, thinking B2B here, not talking about dealer to customer necessarily, but from a business to a dealer, there are some really good platforms, and there's some good platforms that can handle those handoffs. It still feels clunky. And I think that's the thing that I find the most challenging. By the way, Amazon's also clunky. I mean, I have to return this thing. It didn't come or whatever it is. Yes, it's great, but it's not easy to do that. It's not just like, oh, here, a voice note, I need this solved. And,
Yeah, they're getting less frictionful. I mean, at the end of the day, my kid just broke his little Fire tablet that he has, and they have that, worry-free guarantee. And I went on there on my other iPad that I had or whatever, and I started a message with them, and, they must have a rule engine. I've never done a return before. I told him I had a cracked screen. He asked me to
they just approved it. Yeah.
And it was like 2 days later, I had a brand new one. They sent me a return label, and it was a great experience. Right. And so you look and go, okay.
Yeah, no, that is true. 100%. But even there, tell me if I'm wrong. Did you just go chat, or did you have to interact with the form at any point?
No, I just chatted. I just did straight chat. I went into my order history. I clicked on, said there was a problem with it. And then it brought me right into chat and said, is it a cracked screen? It must have been one of the ones that they know that it goes quick. And there must be some, again, I think it's about planning the business rules. Has this customer returned 5 of these before? Okay, you might have to ask more questions. For me, because I've had no problems with them, I probably show up on a low score, and I'm sure that they've got scores on every one of our other customers. I know average cart value might be part of it, lifetime value, whatever, return ratio. So these are the things, again, at my last company, we spent a lot of time as you get to scale like that, you're planning on and seeing, okay, what's the risk assessment? And then trying to make sure that your front lines are enabled to make those decisions without the customer getting pissed that you go, oh, I got to call a manager. I've got to get someone else involved. If it's someone that's never returned before and they're asking to return, just return it, right? If they do it every single month, that person's a problem. You have to have a big person conversation with them and say, hey, we're not taking this back. I know we have a 30-day, but you're constantly doing, this to us. And, I think that's where a lot of these like retailers get hurt, is they don't have enough business rules and, autonomy in those business rules to make good business decisions happen.
Right. Absolutely. I think the whole idea of analyzing any friction with customers that's just the number one most important thing in any business today. And if you can see friction and get rid of it, it's just everything.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about Dealers Unite and what you're thinking about right now. As you guys interact with dealers and you provide services, you provide marketing services, you provide, I assume, not exactly consulting, but partnership. You help them think about strategy and really what's the thing that's most interesting to you right now? What's on your guys' mind? What's that conversation that's going on with the dealers that's most relevant, most interesting, most top of mind for you and your team?
Yeah, I think, dealers are in such an amazing opportunity right now if they really start understanding the ability that they can have direct to consumer conversations without middlemen, right? I think when you look at this ability to truly take your brand to your local market and put your brand on everything, not a third party or some other, provider, but everything you put out there has your logo, your name, your analytics. And when you're building a data warehouse around what your local market is doing, and you're becoming more powerful around that, I think when you get that, the game changes completely for you, short and long term. I think long term, you are constantly building top of mind awareness, and you are the go-to. And, at the end of the day, when you've got a consumer that you can reach and communicate with, they're the ones who solve your business problems, right? They're the ones that, can buy the new car, buy the used car, come service from you. They might even be your future employee, right? Going and finding, employees without using, Indeed and stuff, like just directly going out and saying, hey, we have a job opening and you look similar to my technicians I have a technician job open. Would you be interested? We have awesome benefits. Here's our culture. And I think the power of storytelling, your brand, and dealers are the best, right? At the end of the day, when you look at things like these are great people running great small businesses in every single local economy. And the worst thing that they've had is they haven't been able to really tell their story in multiple ways, right? And the story's not the same for the soccer mom living there, right? Or the baseball dad or the people. And so I always tell dealers they have an opportunity, just like they did in the 50s and the 60s, where you had a sales rep that would hang out at the bar, and you'd have one that hang out at the church, and one that would hang out at the Little League field. Well, that's all micro targeting now, and all, finding people who are interested in that thing that you do. So let's say the Little League baseball, you sponsor Little League. It's really pompous to go on TV and be like, I sponsor the Little League, this year, but it's really easy to go in and tell people that are already like the Little League around you, their kids play, and they're looking for a new vehicle that and showing a team photo, let's say with Sarasota Ford all over it, right? And them going, oh my God, they sponsor my kids, my kids' Little League competitive team. I should go take a look at that dealer. They're involved in the same community I'm involved in. And I think that's a really cool opportunity for any small business at this point, especially a local brick and mortar. I think the power of the technology that's at these folks' hands now gives every business the ability to go directly get their customers. And really, it's scary because there's a lot to manage, right? And I know your software really helps with a lot of that as well. But it's also an amazing opportunity once you understand it. And if you educate yourself and you educate your team, you are going to separate yourself by light years to your competition over the next few years. And I really, truly believe it's going to be the thing that separates you, what combined with your culture internally, your training culture, is going to be the big separator.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. If you look at the way that we've come full circle on that, it's a very deep insight, because the dealers have gone through this. We're past it now, but it was really 15 years, 20 years where they were almost entirely disintermediated from their customer, right? As things moved on the internet and dealers weren't necessarily, not everyone was seeing around the corner and understanding where it was going to go. You as a dealer really just became like a phone number, a price, going from being the hub of the community to essentially being just like data on the internet where your name barely ever showed up because someone had to submit a lead. You had to pay a classified site to show your name. I just think there's such a closing of the loop now where dealers can go direct again with their own brand. And it's just a huge difference.
Yeah. And I think, again, at the end of the day, you get to showcase, and what we try to do is we layer in training, like what conversations you should be having. We teach like a thing called bring your own video. So, we had bought a video company and then we kind of unraveled it. And one of the reasons is we were like, look, why are we sending a video crew to try to do this when everybody's got a smartphone in their pocket? You teach someone a couple quick techniques on how to hold the camera vertical if they're going to shoot natively for Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok, let's say, and you turn it sideways if you're going to go for YouTube. And you might have to create similar content, but designing for the intended audience is going to be critical, right? So taking these short, snippets of content and feeling native in that platform is going to allow you to have higher engagement, higher click-through, higher watch rates, right? And at the end of the day, if you could get someone to watch a 60-second walk around, on your website, you would think that's great. Well, you have the ability to go take that and put it out and see 20,000 people seeing that now and see who's watching it and who's not and taking further insight from it. So I think it's a huge opportunity for people to start understanding. And then I think too, like a lot of argument I get from dealers is, well, I don't want my sales guys out on camera doing that kind of stuff. Then they might not be the best salespeople for you because eventually your customer is going to have to interact with them, right? So I think it really changes the ability for us to see who's camera ready all the time. You should 100%, if you're in the sales job, be ready to take a sales call at any given moment. And you should always be presentable, ready to go, doing your job, right? And so this makes people better because they get to learn how to be on camera. And let's face it, now with COVID, people want virtual walkarounds. I'm looking at buying a potential second home where I'm from, and I'm having the realtor send me walk around videos. I don't want to go to the house. I don't have the time. I'm just busy, right? She's sending me. I'm like, okay, now I really like that one. The pictures stunk from it, but the walk around was amazing. And she did a phenomenal job telling me about why this would be a great fit for my family. It was personalized. Man, now it brought me so much closer, and I'm probably going to make a very large transaction, never even seeing the house, 1,000 miles away from where I live right now, which is crazy.
Totally. Yeah. That really is a very great example because there's just so many transactions happening off of a friend doing a walk around with on WhatsApp or on, just shooting over a video. And it really is incredible how much commerce is essentially transacted off the radar through friend to friend videos. Right. And we're not even we're tracking virtual buys of cars, but there's so much involved in so much happening right now in that like peer-to-peer network around recommendations and word of mouth and just videos, everything in that way. Totally good point.
Well, that's where I think another big opportunity probably will come in over, you talk about influencers and stuff, but it's really the people that are buying from you are the influencer, right? It's all about making sure that when someone says, hey, I'm looking for a vehicle, will they step up and say, oh my God, you got to call. And then hopefully they say, call my sales rep, right? And so what I did is my friend who lives in this town, my hometown, I know he bought like 10 pieces of real estate. So he's probably one of my more active real estate friends that I have. I just called him and I said, hey, who's the person you use? And he's like, 100%. Oh, I use her. And then he gave me her contact information, had a bunch of notes in the contact card. I called her direct and now we're doing business, right? In a day. And so all of the digital signals I put out there, and it's great. We could do the ads and stuff. And she did it. She did a good job because she's been doing local branding and ads. And he's like, oh, you're going to see her when you come up here. She's everywhere. Everybody knows her. I'm like, cool. That's what I'm looking for. I want to make sure I got a realtor that's out there that is going to open the door and know that it's a serious buyer coming in. Right. So I think it's a lot of these taking the organic side of what happens and where we don't have to spend ad spend, right? And I'm not talking about social media posts on your page. I'm talking about what can your employees do, that tier 4 marketing side of things, all the way over to, what you can do from an advertising. So if you get some really great content pieces that look natural, and again, the best pieces we see are not the OEM driven incentives for 0% APR. They're the ones that look native of someone standing by a car that says, I love this from, XYZ, and the old school stuff of getting your license plate frame into certain neighborhoods so that the Jones effect happens, right? So we all know, the next door neighbor gets a brand new car, but he's looking and going, where do they go and where they get that from? Yeah. You can start targeting certain pockets of a community and putting your license plate frame into certain driveways. That whole neighborhood will eventually buy your brand if they're coming to your brand. They're not going to buy from the further dealer as a whole. So, and then at that point, they're going to ask, hey, where'd you get that from? Oh, Joe at XYZ dealership. And then they directly exchange connections. So doing some
and this is it's all got to be connected, right? It's all a part of one framework. On the other hand, sometimes we over prioritize connecting everything. And my company is premised on the ability to build a single data layer where everything is connected. But on the other hand, sometimes, this just works. Just do it. So I can see both sides. That's why it's always
tough. How many times have you been fired, right? And me as well, because they don't feel it's working. Right. That feeling side of it's a big, and as a business owner, your gut is a big part of totally. Making decisions. Right. And at the end of the day, there's a qualitative and quantitative side. But again, this is where strategy is important. And us as vendors or partners, hopefully we get considered instead of a vendor, is about strategy and understanding, okay, what are your pain points? So, we like to use Digital Marketer. We're good friends with Ryan Dice and the team over there. And we're a partner of Digital Marketer. And they have a thing called customer value optimization. It's 9 parts that a customer flows through, from being a complete stranger to a raving fan. And these are frameworks that HubSpot teaches and others, if you look at the inbound strategy. And so we'll look at this from an automotive buyer journey and try to help dealers understand, okay, cool. We're probably not going to be really good at the value ladder, we call it, when someone comes in and they want to buy the car, because we don't really build tools around the CRM or anything around that. But we can definitely help you, again, if you've missed a service opportunity or an opportunity to sell gap insurance, to go back to all the people who didn't buy gap insurance, put them in a custom audience, and then start talking on video about that and give them a call to action to a phone number from someone on your team that handles gap insurance add-on in the first 60 days of post-purchase. But you should still be dropping email. You should still hit them up on, but again, someone might not open that email, but they might see the video on Facebook, or they might see it on YouTube because you hit them with a custom audience. And that power of being able to transfer that message to someone, I think, is the critical part, right? Whether it's me physically talking to them or it's a pre-recorded message that I put on there, right? And that's why I think things like even Ringler's voicemail, they're super effective. It's like, hey, I'm the general manager. I noticed that you didn't buy gap insurance. I just wanted to tell you if you XYZ. And by the way, I'm going to send you a quick follow-up email, and having 2 triggers of a ringless voicemail and a follow-up email with a link to the landing page that talks about gap insurance, which adds X amount of additional revenue or gross to the dealership, are very critical things that dealers, need to be thinking about, so that they are able to transfer why it's important that a customer thinks about this, and then present the opportunity and let the customer choose, is it really for them or not?
Okay. Anyone listening to this who is a dealer, if after this, you do not want Pete in your corner with Dealers United, you were listening to a different podcast. I think from a strategy perspective, the ability to really think holistically about what the dealer's trying to accomplish, and, to bring to bear frameworks and connected strategies, it's fantastic. So number one, everyone should check out Dealers United and check out, learn more about Pete, but really his team, because I know he spends an enormous amount of time, not just his own team, but really in Sarasota, driving just mentorship, and I've met his team, some of his team members, and they all.
Thanks. And you guys, as well, you're building. I mean, some of the best tech I see out there. I tell everybody, I'm like, if you're not, Auto Lead Star's not on the bucket, they definitely should be there. But we definitely take more of a strategy, and we do put software in as well, and we do recommend partners and stuff. But at the end of the day, it is about finding, figuring out what your real pain points are. That's why we say we solve dealerships' challenge using Facebook and Instagram and other online mediums, because at the end of the day, we have the ability to go have the consumers that you need to reach, help solve your business challenge. You need more revenue, or you need to lower defect rate. These are all things we have to know what the problem is, and then we can go figure out what the data tells us, and then we can go plug it in, because we can buy the data, we can get directly to those eyeballs. We can usually download the data from your system in many cases, right? Like a CRM's got a lot of the stuff in there, or you might be using an equity mining software. So it's definitely not, I don't think we're lacking tools necessarily. I think we're lacking a lot of strategy. And then I think it's a lot of it of when we have the tools, are we training to make sure the dealers are doing the things in the tools? Like your toolkit has a ton of stuff in there. The dealer should take time to understand what they just bought and make sure they're investing in it. So we just overhauled everything internally to HubSpot, and we were on Salesforce and like 16 other different software stacks, including Zendesk. But we just said, we feel that HubSpot's at a point we're going to go 100% all in. So now we're getting our team certified on it. We're sending people in. We brought a consultant in for HubSpot that, we're paying a lot of money to. But we got to live, breathe, and like trust that partner at this point, that they're going to take us and make us a better organization following some of their tools and framework that they have.
Very nice. I really think that this has been definitely also a good conversation for people who are trying to do the types of things you're doing, build the types of companies that Pete and I admire and look at. So folks should listen. So Pete, this is great. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it. You guys are doing great work.
I enjoyed it from a couple perspectives. One, learning more about you, but also getting that view of how you see a dealership and how you guys add value to a dealership, how you think about building a business. Again, there's lots of good facets of this conversation for people to learn from in our audience. If people want to learn more about Dealers United, what should they do? What's their best bet?
I mean, dealersunited.com. Obviously, follow me on LinkedIn. I'm not as big on social as I should be, but dealersunited.com is a great place to start and take a look there. And, obviously, if there's recommendations, even if it's not with us, we'll be more than happy to, make recommendations or just talk to you about, we have a lot of people ask us, hey, what do you think about this or that? Or take a look at analytics. At the end of the day, those are all good starting points, but I would just encourage dealers to start, on what are the challenges you're trying to solve? What are you facing in the next, 30, 60, 90 days, and hopefully beyond, right? Over the next 6 months or 12 months or 3 years, what do you want your dealership to look like? And then work towards reverse engineering that experience through using technology and strategy and partners, and really giving a partner a chance to kind of work through that. And I think that's what a lot of us in automotive, there's a lot of great tech, there's a lot of great people out there. You kind of got to find the folks that you like working with and go deep with them. And hopefully they'll take you to another level. I know you guys are doing great work out there. We see a lot of our customers, shared customers as well, that we have that, definitely admire what you guys are doing. I think you guys have built some sick tech.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. Okay. That's it. You can find our podcast on, by the way, Pete, this is the part Ilana usually does, so I'm going to get it wrong here, but you can find our podcast anywhere that you listen to your podcast. Find on Apple Podcasts, you can find on Spotify, Stitcher, Podcast Republic. I don't know. Wherever you get a podcast, go find us and listen to great conversations like the one we just had with Pete. This is our own from Inside Auto Podcast signing off. We look forward to getting back with you all soon. So have a great, great week. And Pete, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. Happy selling, guys.
Thanks for listening to Inside Auto Podcast. Check out our other episodes with top entrepreneurs and industry leaders.